What's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you guys all how to mod a PS-Vita. This is the most permanent mod and the most up-to-date mod, so I will be showing you guys how to do that. On top of that, I will be also showing you how to use and configure your SD to Vita plugin. So without further ado, let's get into it. So here are the things you're going to be needing. First thing you're going to be needing is obviously a PS-Vita. This is a PS-Vita 1000 that I actually imported from Japan on eBay. They're actually pretty dirt cheap. I got this one for around $100. They usually sell for $100 to $150, which is actually really good nowadays. And the 1000 actually doesn't have any built-in memory. It has 1 gigabyte, and that's actually good because this tutorial will show you how to mod a PS-Vita with no memory. But let's say you do want some memory. I'll also show you how to do that. The next thing you're going to need if you want to add additional memory, which I highly recommend, is you're going to need this thing. It is an SD to Vita adapter. These are very cheap on Amazon. They go for about $7. And what this is, it is a little game card. And this game card plugs into the cartridge slot on your PS Vita right up here. Then you take a little micro SD card. I have 64 gigabytes. Stick it in and I'll show you guys how to do that. So grab your PS Vita and let's get started. So the first step in modding is always upgrading to the most recent version, but in this case, we're actually not going to do that. So if you are already, that's perfectly fine. So if we go down here and we go to System, then click System, then click System Information, you should be on version 3.74. That is the thing that most of you will be on. However, what we're going to do is actually downgrade this to 3.60, because if you mod on 3.74, then you will not have a permanent mod and have to redo these steps every single time you reboot the system. So I will be teaching you how to mod on 3.74, and then I will be teaching you how to get a permanent mod on version 3.60. So first, let's start with the modding. So after you've updated to version 3.74, we're going to go to the web browser and click it with circle or X, and click into it with circle or X. Then we're going to want to type in the address bar, http:// then we're going to do jailbreak, jailbreak, .psp2.dev. And after we click that, it will pop up with this, and it will say, hello, a PlayStation Vita jailbreak. So you're going to want to tap on the touchscreen and click Unlock My Vita. So after we click that, it'll say press unlock to begin. So we're going to press unlock. Then it should take you to a new page. And if you just wait a second, it should open a new application. There we go, just did it for us. And you will see the Hello Bootstrap. So what I recommend doing is first install Henkaku. So press that with circle or X. In this case, we're just going to press it with X. So press it with X. And it will download the latest Henkaku builds. Then it will say all done. And it will use exit to launch to that. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to replace, what we're going to want to do is go to exit and mount SD to Vita with UX0. So this creates a little bit of a backup in case things go wrong. So we're going to click that and it'll say exiting in 3. Then it's going to launch the game's ND. Let's scroll down, go to settings, go to start. And then new here, you will see Henkaku settings. So go to this, and you're going to want to enable unsafe homebrew. Then you're going to want to go down here, and you're going to want to go to system. Actually, you're going to want to go to format, then format memory card, and you should see internal memory card 1 gigabyte. So that should already be checked. If it's not, just go ahead and check it. Then go to next. It said if you format a memory card, all data on the memory card will be deleted. Go ahead and go to format, and then it will close all the applications in use. Do you want to continue? Go to yes. Then all data on memory card will be deleted, go to yes, and it will be formatting the memory card. Formatting complete, the system will restart. After your PS Vita restarts, we're going to want to go back to the browser. So click that with circle or X, and we're just going to not do anything. We're going to go back to the same website because we need to do one more thing. So we're going to click Unlock My Vita again, and press Unlock, which will take us to the website that we were originally, so we'll go back to that. Once we're in here, we're going to click Replace Near with VitaDeploy. So we're going to click that. And it says this will cause your bubble layout to be reset. It doesn't really do anything. It just replaces the Near app on your Vita, or sometimes it just adds a whole new app either way. and it will replace it with Vita. So it says this will cause your bubble layout to be reset, and then we're going to click square, which replaces near with VitaDeploy. So it's going to extract the VPK, and then it'll back up near in case something goes wrong, and then it'll replace near, and then it'll reboot. Then you're going to want to open your Vita again, and you should see, instead of near, you will now see VitaDeploy. So just to test that, we're going to click on that, and we're going to click start. And it'll say an error has occurred, and it'll keep saying that, and here is the reason why. So we're going to go back, and we're going to go to the web browser, and this is, and just to be sure we want to do this, we want to go to settings real quick, and this only happens if you see the error has occurred. So as you can see, we don't have those Henkaku settings anymore, and this is the main reason why we're going to downgrade, so we don't have to do this step every single time the system reboots. So we're going to go back, we're going to go out of settings, then we're going to go back, should be one of the final times we go back to the web browser, and then we're going to click start, and we're just going to do the same thing again. So we're just going to go back to the site, we're going to click unlock my Vita, we're going to click unlock again, we're just going to go to install Henkaku, then it will say all done, and then we're going to click exit, and it'll exit in 3 seconds. Then after it exits, we should be able to go to VitaDeploy, which will take us to the settings menu, and this is what we want. So we're now going to go to app downloader in VitaDeploy. Then we're going to click Vita Shell, and we're going to click PKGJ. And then we're going to go up. We're going to go to download the selected apps. Then it's going to download Vita Shell, which is the first one. And we don't really care about package J right now. We just want to make sure Vita Shell gets installed no matter what, because that's what we're going to use for file transfer and to downgrade our system. So it said, let's say download, extract, promote. Then it'll say okay. And then same with package J. Except we really don't need that right now. We're not going to be using that for a little bit. So every app has been successfully installed. So now we can just close out of that. Now we're ready to downgrade the system. So as soon as we're ready to download our apps, we're going to go to VitaDeploy to start the downgrading process. And I'm just going to say you will need a PC after this. So we're going to click on VitaDeploy. And then we're actually going to go out of VitaDeploy. It's just a thing. And then you're going to want to go to Vita Shell. On the bottom, it should be there. Then click Start. Vita Shell is a file manager app that we can access on our PC, so we can downgrade the update file. So after Vita Shell opens, you're going to want to click Select. And it's going to say connect to a PC using a USB cable. Now, you can do this, but I highly do not recommend connecting with a USB cable. So what we're going to do is we're going to click Start. Then we're going to go down to USB to select button, and then we're going to change it to FTP, then hit the back arrow, then we're going to hit select, and it's going to tell you which FTP server it's running at. So next we're going to switch to our PC. Okay, so now that we're back on the PC, we're going to want to scroll down and to the first link that I put in the description. So this is the PS-Vita firmware archive, and we're going to download a specific update file for the 3.60 firmware. So we're going to click next here. We're going to click next, and then we're going to find firmware 3.60, and we're going to just do the one from archive.org, and we're going to click download. So that should give us a download file, and we're just going to wait for that to download. While that's downloading, we're going to go to the second link that I put in the description, which is Modoro. So we're going to click this in the GitHub and click modoro.vpk. So we're going to click that, and that should also start downloading. So modoro.vpk, and then your PSP update.file, and then we will move on to the next step. Once we've downloaded both of those files, get your FTP executor of your choice. I recommend FileZilla. It's just the easiest to use in my personal opinion. So once we're on FileZilla or your FTP browser of choice, under the host tab, we're going to type in the FTP server that our PS-Vita has applied for us. So I'm going to do 192.168.1.30, and then the thing that says 1337 or a different port after the colon, we are going to put that in the port tab, so 1337. Then we're going to go to Quick Connect. Then it's going to ask if that it doesn't have a FTP connection, like it's insecure, just click OK, because we are the only one accessing it, and here you go. So here's all the folders and the paths in the PS Vita. So we're going to want to go to UX0, then we're going to want to go to data, and then the two files that we downloaded, if I go to my downloads here, we're going to go to pspupdate.pup and Modoro VPK. So we're going to click that and drag them to the data folder. Then you wait for it to be done, and I'll let you guys come back when it's done. So after all the files have finished transferring, we're going to click cancel on this. Then we're going to want to go to UX0, then go to data, and you should see a bootstrap, Modoro.vpk, and the PSP2 update file that we found. So we're going to click on Modoro VPK, and it asks if we want to install the package. We're going to want to click yes. Then we're going to click install. It's going to see it wants extended permissions. We're going to click yes again. We're going to press triangle. Then we're going to go down to delete with the Modoro.vpk. Click it, and if we want to delete it, we click yes. Then it will start deleting. Then we're going to want to take our PSP update file. We're going to click triangle, and we're going to click copy. It'll say to copy one file. Then we're going to go back. So once we get back to the UX0, we're going to want to go to app. Then we're going to want to go to Modoro. Then we're going to want to go to inside of Modoro, and we want to paste our PSP2 update file. I've already done that. So then we're going to want to go back. We're back on the UX0. We're going to find our TIE folder. And if you don't have it, that's perfectly fine. Then we are going to want to completely close out a Vita shell and reboot our system. And after we reboot, we're going to want to go back to the browser, and we're going to go again. Last time, guys. So we're going to go back to jailbreak.psp2, and then it will go to unlock my Vita, go to unlock. Then we're going to go back here. It'll take us to the app just like normal. Then it's going to go here, and we're just going to install Kaku one last time. Say all done. Then we're going to click exit. It'll exit in 3 seconds. Then we're going to go back down here, and we're going to go to Modoro. Then we're going to click start. Then it'll say, do you want to downgrade from firmware 3.74 to firmware 3.60? Press X to confirm. We're going to press X. Then it'll say the software will make permanent modifications to your Vita. This is what we want. It'll continue in 20 seconds, so just wait out that 20 seconds, and then we should be good. It'll say press X to accept the terms and conditions. We're going to press X. Then it'll say cleaning you DO. And then it will do all this stuff, so we're just going to wait a second. Then it's going to say extracting PSP0. Then it's going to start the updater. Then it's going to go back here, and it's going to go to a system update. If this happens, you are in the right place, and you've done everything right. So it's going to go to a system update, and it's just going to act completely like normal. So we're just going to accept these prompts that'll pop up in the next few minutes. Then it'll say installing the software update, and it will reboot. So I will come back to you guys when it's rebooted. After your system reboots, we're going to want to scroll down. Then we're going to want to go to settings, and to make sure it works, we're going to check the system version. So we're going to want to go to settings. Then we're going to want to go to system, then system informations, and if it says 3.60, you did everything right. So the next thing we're going to want to do, this starts the official permanent browser, permanent homebrew, so we don't have to go back to the browser each time. This is one of the last times we'll be going to the browser, so we're going to want to go to start, and we're actually going to go to a different site this time. We're going to go to http, and then we're going to go to Henkaku, henkaku.xyz. Then we're going to click enter, and then it'll say the revolution is here. We're going to want to click install. Then we're going to read the disclaimer if you want, and then click install. Then it will say an error has occurred. This is completely normal. So we're going to wait for this to load. Then we're going to want to click OK. And then it will launch the molecule browser. So it'll say starting, and it'll start downloading a bunch of stuff. This is completely normal. It'll say it was successfully installed, and then it will close automatically. Then, to make sure this worked, we're going to want to go down to settings, then click start. Then we're going to see Henkaku settings. That's how we know it works. Then we're going to click enable unsafe homebrew and then go back. Then we're going to want to close the settings application. After we do that, then we're going to want to go back to Vita Shell. It'll say please wait, then go to start. Then we're going to want to click select again, and we'll be back on the PC. So now that we're back on the PC, we're going to go to the third link that I said here, and we're going to click enso.vpk and download the enso.vpk file. Then we're going to go back to our FTP client and reconnect. So I'm just going to establish a new connection. Then we're going to go to UX0, and we're going to go to data again. Then we are going to go to our files and drag and drop the enso.vpk file that we just put there. So I'm going to click that, drag it, and then drop it. It should only take a second. Then we can close our FTP client. Okay, we're back on the PS Vita again, and we're going to click cancel. Then we're going to go back to data. Then we're going to go to enso.vpk, click install, and then it's going to install. We click yes again, and it'll actually install this time. Then it will close. Then we close out of Vita Shell, and you should see Enso right here. So we're going to click on Enso, and it should say molecule. So we're going to click start. It'll say press circle to accept the terms or any other key not to accept. So we're going to press circle. Then it'll say cross to install / reinstall the hack. So we're going to press the cross or X. Then it will start installing. It'll say press X to continue, any other key to exit. So press X. Then the installation was completed successfully. So then we're going to press any key to reboot, and it should reboot our system. After we reboot, it should look like normal. So we're going to go to settings, and just to confirm that the hack worked, we should see Henkaku settings. So now we finally don't have to go to the browser each time. So now, after we've done that, we're going to go back to Vita Shell. This should be one of the last times. After we're back in Vita Shell, we're going to want to click select and open the FTP once again. Then we're going to want to go to the next link I have in the description, and it should say what you need here. So we're going to go to the latest release of Enso and iTLS Enso. This is different from the one we originally downloaded. Then we're going to go to no npdrm, get the skprx file, then 0syscall, then download that as well. Then download enabler. This is to enable you to download games. So suprx file. Then shellbat, which is the suprx file. Then png shot, which is the suprx file. Then finally PSV shell, the skprx file. After that, we're going to want to go to the data folder. And then we are going to open our file explorer and go to downloads. And then the only one we're going to place in here is the iTLS enso.vpk file. So that's going to copy over. And then after that is done, we're going to go up. Then we're going to go up again. Then we're going to go to UR0, not UX0. Then we're going to go to the TIE file. Then we're going to open our file explorer. Then after that, we are going to take all the rest of these, so non-DPM, syscall, PSV shell, and all of that. Then we're going to drop those there. After that's done, we go back to the original link, and up here it should say the config.txt. So we are going to take this, and we're going to hit Control-C. Then we are going to open Notepad. After we open Notepad, we are going to paste this, and we're going to go to File, then Save As. Then we are going to call it config.txt, then save it to our downloads folder, click Save. Then, back on our FTP server, we're going to go to this, click Downloads again, and you should see a config.txt. So we're going to drag that to the TIE folder, and it's going to ask if we want to overwrite it. We are going to click OK. So it should say all files have been transferred. So then we are going to go back to the PS Vita. Okay, and we're back once again. So we're going to click cancel. Then we're going to go to UX0, go to data, then go to iTLS enso.vpk, click yes, and then click yes again, and then it should install. After it's done installing, we can close out of Vita Shell. Then you should see iTLS Enso. Then we're going to want to click Start. Then we're going to want to click X on Install the full iTLS package. So So we're going to click that, and it'll stay working. Once we're back at the home screen, we're now going to block updates so this doesn't get patched. So we're going to go to Settings and start that. Then we're going to want to go to System, then Auto Start Settings. Then we're going to uncheck the Download Update file for system software, and then we're going to close the settings application. We're going to enable PSN access, so if you ever want to connect to Wi-Fi and play. So we're going to go to Settings, then we're going to go to Start. Then we're going to go to Henkaku Settings, and we're going to make sure that Enable PSN Spoofing is there. Then we're going to go to Spoofed Version, and we're going to change it from 3.65 to 3.74. So 3.74, and click Check. And then to make sure that worked, we're going to go down to System, and we're going to go to System Information, and it should say 3.60, and then if you see some Chinese text, that's how you know it says 3.74. So then we're going to close the settings application, and now we move on to the next step. So now that we have custom firmware installed, you might want some extra space, and that is where our adapter comes in and our micro SD card. So this will get you so much more space than what you thought you had, because nowadays the PS-Vita memory cards are actually very, very expensive. So we can actually use an adapter, which is called SD to Vita, and we can set up a micro SD card instead of the regular storage. So the first thing we're going to want to do is you're going to want to plug in your micro SD card. So I'm going to plug that in right now. Then I'm going to go to Files, and I'm going to go to my USB drive. I'm going to go to Format, and I'm going to format this in exFAT format with the volume label. I'm just going to call it PS-Vita. You can name it whatever you want. Just make sure that the allocation unit size is 128 kilobytes. And if you have anything bigger than 256 gigabytes, to make it 64 kilobytes. So then we're going to click Start, and it says it's going to erase all data on this disk. So make sure there's nothing you have on there that you want to keep. Then you're going to want to click OK and Format Complete. After we do that, we're going to want to go to the next link in the description, which is Win32 Disk Imager, and we're going to want to download that. Then you're going to want to go to the next link in the description, and it's the ZZ Blank image, and we're going to go to Download Now, and then it's going to take us to a Google Drive file, and we're going to click Download. And it says it can't scan for viruses or anything. I can assure you there's no viruses. I'm going to click Download anyway, and then that will download as well. So the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to install and run Win32 Disk Imager. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, since I've already installed it, but just run the file. Then we're going to make sure that our SD card is selected, and we're going to click on our file. We're going to click ZZ Blank Image. So we're going to click Write, and it says if you want to do it, and we're going to click Yes. The write will be successful. Then we're actually going to go and reformat our SD card again. So we're going to go to Format, and then we're going to go to PS-Vita. We're just going to type that in the volume label, click Start, and then erase the data. And now we can go back to the PS-Vita. So now that we're back on our Vita, we're going to go back to Vita Shell, and we're going to click Start. Then we're going to go to Select, and we're going to run that FTP server. This should be the last time we do this, so let's run it one last time. Okay, so this should be the last download we have to do, so we're going to go to Auto Plugin, and we're going to download this. This will also be in the description. So we're going to go to FileZilla, and we're going to type in that FTP server one more time. So I am just going to go to 192.168.1.30, and again, this is just what is on your console. Do not use mine. I'm sure it will not work. Then go to 1337, quick connect, go to OK. And so the reason why we're here is we need to go to UX0, then go to Data. Then we are going to go to our files, and we're going to drag and drop our auto plugin file. So we're going to go here, and we're going to go ahead and copy that over. So as you can see, it's transferring. And there you go, we have the auto plugin VPK. So after that, we cannot have the SD card when we plug it in to be blank, or else the formatting won't work. So what we're going to want to go to do is go to click this UX0, and we are going to copy all of the contents. So we're just going to click Control C. Then we're going to go to Files, and we're going to go to PS-Vita, and then we are going to hit Paste. So Control V. Okay, so now your SD card should look like this, and if it looks similar to this or like this, you are doing the right thing. Good job. So now we are going to move on to the final step. So you're going to want to take your SD card, and you're going to want to take your adapter. Then you're going to plug it in brand side facing up, and plug that in right there. Then you are going to want to open this card slot on the top of your Vita, which is usually the game card slot, but since you're downloading all your games anyway, we should be okay. So you're going to want to put your card slot in here. Then you're going to want to close that up. Then now that you're in auto plugin, you're going to want to go to plugins for Vita. Click that with circle or X. Then click install plugin for SD to Vita, and it says to install storage manager plugin, your SD to Vita must be ready. If a game card is inserted, it must be removed before reviewing. That does not mean the actual SD to Vita, that just means any actual game card. So you're going to want to click circle to proceed, and it will see the storage manager will be installed, and you're not going to want to touch anything with this. You're just going to want to click save current configuration, and it will say storage manager config updated. And then it should pop up with another thing that says your PS-Vita will restart. So we're going to go ahead and restart. Then we're going to swipe up. And if you see the three things and you see all of these, that's a great sign to tell if that worked. But just to make sure that worked, we're going to go into Vita Shell and click Start. No FTP client this time. We're going to go to UX0. And if you see the amount of data in there, so in this case, I had a 64 gigabyte. It says 58.93 gigabytes now. That is how you know you have completely and successfully modded your Vita. But don't. So now that you have your Vita officially modded, a lot of people want to know how you can actually download and install games. And usually I can't tell you that, but this time I can. Remember that PKGJ file I showed you guys? We're now going to open that, and it's going to say please wait, and we're going to click start. After we click start, it should say no items, but what we're going to want to do is click the triangle, and then we're going to go down and click refresh, and after we refresh, it should load every single PlayStation Vita game with DLC known to date, and it will show you, and you can install them at your leisure. So, to give you an example here, let's say I want to play Uncharted. We can go click triangle, click search, and then I type in Uncharted, UNCHARTED, click enter, and Uncharted Golden Abyss is right here. You click your region, it can be any region since you've modded it, and click install game in patch, and then just wait a second, and it should say installation of whatever game is queued in live area. So to make sure it works, we're going to close out of PKGJ, and we're going to click this, and as you can see, the game is currently downloading.